A billionaire handed his credit card to a homeless single mother for one day, but what she did with it would shock him in ways he never imagined. Ifeoma clutched her small son Chijioke close, her fingers brushing the worn edges of her wrapper, while Emeka Okoro, one of Lagos' wealthiest men, stood a few meters away, observing silently. He had handed her more money than she had ever touched in her life. Yet in her tired eyes, he saw not greed, but fear, resolve, and something unbroken. Even after years of struggle, Ifeoma had been surviving on the streets of Mushin, scraping together food from leftovers, dodging both thieves and the harsh Lagos rain, and raising Chijioke alone after her husband, a young driver, had died in a car accident 2 years prior. Yet now, for one single day, she held the power to change her life. Emeka, a man used to seeing money corrupt even the kindest hearts, wondered silently, would this mother squander his trust, or would she reveal a strength that even wealth had never taught him? Chijioke tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. "Mama, what is that shiny thing?" he asked, pointing at the black card in her hand. Ifeoma smiled softly, brushing his hair from his forehead. "It's something very powerful, my son. Today, it's our helper, but we must use it wisely." Emeka adjusted his designer suit, polished shoes catching the sunlight, the symbol of a life of unimaginable privilege. Skyscrapers reflected off the nearby Third Mainland Bridge, and below, the chaotic Lagos traffic swirled like a river of energy. Yet here, in the middle of this teeming city, he had chosen to place his faith in Ifeoma, a woman who had nothing but courage and honesty to her name. He thought of his childhood in Surulere. Cramped apartment, father absent, mother working 2 jobs. The sting of watching other kids with shoes he could never afford. That memory had shaped him, had made him vigilant about human nature, careful about how people handled power. And now, handing Ifeoma the card, he was testing not just her, but his own assumptions about goodness and wealth. "Don't be afraid, Ifeoma," Emeka said quietly, his voice calm but commanding. "I'm not judging you for money. I want to see the real you. One day, just one day." Ifeoma's eyes flicked to Chijioke, then back to the card. She remembered nights when he had slept with fever, her hands trembling, begging for change, receiving only rejection. Memories of her late husband's gentle voice came to her, whispering from the past, "If you always do what is right, even when it's hard, nothing can take that away from you." A thin smile broke her lips, mingled with fear. I'll do my best," she whispered. Emeka nodded, his gaze lingering on her, weighing the choices she would make, the integrity she would show. He did not know what she would do next. And neither did she. For one day, a Lagos mother with nothing had access to unimaginable wealth, and by the end of it, the city itself might bear witness to a truth that would leave a billionaire in shock. Ifeoma held Chijioke's hand tightly as they weaved through the bustling streets of Mushin. The sun beat down mercilessly, mixing with the scent of fried plantains and exhaust fumes, as traders shouted prices for tomatoes, yams, and roasted corn. The black card burned in her pocket, not with heat, but with possibility. She had never owned anything beyond her tattered wrapper and the worn sandals on her feet. Today, that small piece of plastic could buy almost anything in Lagos. Yet the weight of responsibility pressed her down like 100 raindrops during Harmattan. Her mind wandered back to last year, to a night when Chijioke had a high fever and she had walked 3 kilometers to the nearest pharmacy. She had no money, no insurance, only her prayer and desperate hope that someone would help. The memory still burned, how she had begged a pharmacist for mercy, only to be turned away, his eyes dismissive. She remembered holding Chijioke close that night, feeling the small life against hers, powerless to shield him from the cold, the hunger, and the pain of a city that didn't care. "Mama, can we buy something to eat?" Chijioke's voice was soft, yet insistent, pulling her back to the present. His innocent eyes reflected curiosity, excitement, and trust, a trust she had to honor. "Yes, my love," she said, forcing a small smile. She fished the card from her pocket, its black surface smooth and alien in her fingers. She had never imagined being able to swipe it for anything she wanted, let alone help others. Every step toward a vendor felt surreal, like stepping into another life she had only glimpsed from afar. A small bakery came into view, its shelves stacked with fresh bread. The aroma made her stomach growl, and she caught herself hesitating, tempted by the simple pleasure of buying more than the bare minimum. Then a memory flashed. A rainy afternoon, her husband, before his death, holding her hands in their tiny apartment, whispering, "Money will come and go, Ifema. What matters is how you use it, and who you remain when you have it." She drew a deep breath and handed the card to the cashier, buying bread not just for herself and Chijioki, but for a street child she had noticed the day before, hunched in the corner with empty eyes. The boy looked up in surprise, his lips trembling as he accepted the small loaf. Chijioki clapped softly, his innocent laughter piercing the air, and for a moment, Ifema felt a warmth she had not known in years. A stray dog limped toward them, ribs visible beneath its thin coat. Without thinking, she offered it the small packet of food she had purchased, Chijioki helping her feed it. The city around them moved on, oblivious, but to Ifema, the world had narrowed to these small acts, small choices that revealed the person she had always been. Tested by wealth she had never imagined, from afar, Emeka watched discreetly, leaning against a parked car, his glasses reflecting the sun. He had seen hesitation, morality, and instinctive generosity, all in motion. A small smile tugged at his lips. He whispered to himself, "This is what I hope for. Integrity under the weight of wealth." Ifema looked down at Chijioki, feeling the gravity of the day settle around her. Every swipe, every decision, every small act of kindness or restraint would ripple far beyond their understanding. And though she did not yet know it, these first choices were laying the foundation for a day that would shock even the richest man in Lagos. Emeka stepped back into the shade of a tall building, shielding his eyes from the glaring Lagos sun. From his vantage point, he watched Ifema navigate the crowded streets, Chijioki at her side, her hands steady even under the invisible weight of the black card. He adjusted his glasses, his mind wandering briefly to his own childhood in Seoul decades ago. A cramped two-room apartment, a mother juggling multiple jobs, and a father who had disappeared before he could remember his face. Money had never come easy. Trust had never been simple. He remembered the first time someone had given him unexpected help, a small envelope, not much by anyone's standard. But it had sparked something in him, a mixture of gratitude, curiosity, and suspicion. Why had that stranger chosen him? Why now? That memory had shaped the man he had become. Someone obsessed with observing human nature, testing morality, and understanding the choices people made when power collided with opportunity. His thoughts drifted to boardrooms where he ruled with precision, wealth flowing like water through his fingers. Yet all the money in the world had never taught him what he truly wanted to see, the raw honesty of a human heart, and shaped by greed or expectation. That was why he had found Ifema, a single mother surviving the harsh realities of Mushin. She was not polished, not trained in etiquette or business acumen. She was real. And real, he had learned, often revealed more than the most educated or wealthy ever could. His phone buzzed. He ignored it, letting the messages fade into silence. Business could wait. This experiment this day was more important. Every step Ifema took, every choice she made, would be a mirror to the lessons he had tried to instill in himself and test in others. Could generosity survive temptation? Could integrity survive sudden power? He had seen failure countless times before. Greed, pride, fear, they corrupted even the best intentions. But Ifema, she seemed different. A flashback hit him, 10-year-old Emeka, standing in a market with his mother, clutching a small envelope of money given by a stranger. The gratitude had burned in his chest, but so had the suspicion. That day had made him curious about human nature, about the way people reacted when offered opportunity. He had spent decades building wealth, influence, and power, but always testing others, always looking for that spark of unbroken morality. From across the street, he noticed Ifema pause, offering snacks to a street child and food to a stray dog. A small smile tugged at his lips. She had hesitated at the boutique earlier, tempted by luxury. Yet her choices reflected the lessons life had taught her: love, sacrifice, and integrity. Emeka whispered under his breath, almost reverently, "This is what I hope to see. Not wealth, not education, but heart." Let's see how far she will go. For the first time that morning, he felt anticipation, not born from business or boardroom power, but from the pure uncertainty of human choice. This day, one day with a black card, could reveal truths that no amount of money could buy. And somewhere deep inside, He wondered if he himself might learn something he had never known about trust, hope, and the resilience of the human spirit. Ifeoma stepped into the bustling Mile 12 market, the black card heavy in her pocket. Chijiok's small hand tightened around hers, sensing the importance of this moment even if he didn't fully understand it. The scent of roasted corn, spicy suya, and fresh vegetables filled the air, blending with the rhythmic honking of Danfo buses. Lagos moved relentlessly, indifferent to the struggles of one mother and her child, but today, she held something that could bend that indifference, Emeka's credit card. Her mind flashed to a memory from 2 years ago, the day her husband had died. She had carried Chijioki through the pouring rain, each step a battle against grief, fear, and exhaustion. Back then, a loaf of bread was a luxury. Today, it was trivial. The contrast made her stomach twist, a mixture of relief and guilt. Could she spend on herself, or was the true test to help others? "Mama, can we get something for lunch?" Chijioki asked, pointing at a small stand selling akara balls. His voice was soft, trusting. Double quotes, "Yes, my love," she said, her fingers brushing the card. She handed it to the vendor, feeling a thrill mixed with anxiety. The man's eyes widened at the sight of the card, but she smiled warmly, keeping her nerves in check. She bought extra, handing portions to children nearby, watching their surprised, grateful faces light up. Chijioki giggled, offering his share to a boy younger than him. A flashback hit her of her husband, sitting beside her in their tiny apartment, whispering words she had clung to for years. "Power is measured not by what you take, but by what you give, Ifeoma." She had repeated those words in her mind countless times, especially on nights when hunger and fear threatened to overwhelm her. Today, they were guiding her more than ever. As they continued, a stray dog limped across the dusty street. Without hesitation, she offered it a small packet of food she had purchased, and Chijioki laughed, petting the animal. The simple act reminded her of the resilience she had nurtured in herself, of love that didn't depend on wealth or comfort, but on heart. From a nearby balcony, Emeka watched, leaning against the railing, his gaze sharp yet unreadable. He had anticipated hesitation, temptation, and perhaps even selfishness, but each small act of generosity confirmed what he had suspected. Integrity could survive even when suddenly confronted with power. He murmured quietly, "She is what I hoped to find." Honest under pressure. Ifeoma paused, scanning the busy market. She saw an older woman struggling to carry heavy crates of tomatoes. Without thinking, she stepped forward, offering to help, the card still tucked safely in her pocket. Chijioki followed, carrying a smaller crate, his little arms straining but determined. Every action felt deliberate, yet natural. This was the culmination of years of hardship, sacrifice, and moral training, her own compass guiding her through a world that had tested her relentlessly. As they walked away, vendors whispering behind them, Ifeoma felt a quiet pride. The day was far from over, and challenges still awaited. But each choice she made brought clarity. Generosity, courage, and love were not limited by poverty, they were amplified by them. And she did not yet know that these small, deliberate actions were quietly setting the stage for a moment that would leave Lagos' most powerful billionaire in utter shock. The sun hung low over Lagos, casting long shadows across the crowded streets of Yoba. Ifeoma, the card tucked safely in her bag, paused outside a boutique that gleamed with designer shoes and sparkling handbags. She swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. This was different from the market, from feeding children or helping a street vendor. This was luxury she had never touched, temptation she had never imagined. Could she indulge herself, even for a moment, without betraying the lessons of her late husband? Chijioki tugged at her wrapper, curiosity wide in his innocent eyes. "Mama, can we go inside?" Ifeoma hesitated, the weight of the black card heavy in her hand. Her mind flickered back to a memory of rainy nights, Chijioki sick with fever, her hands trembling as she begged for medicine she couldn't afford. She had promised him and herself that she would never forget the value of every naira and the meaning of integrity. But now, the card in her hand offered indulgence. A taste of the world she had only seen through shop windows and passing limousines. Her gaze flicked to the shoes behind the glass, red stilettos. Their shine hypnotic, calling to a part of her that had long been buried beneath years of hardship. She thought of her mother's soft voice, years ago, warning her beauty and desire are not wrong, my child. But remember who you are. Do not let luxury change your heart. Ifeoma drew a deep breath. She could feel her own heartbeat in her ears, the city's noise fading around her. She considered stepping inside, even trying on the shoes, imagining the thrill of walking in them for just one day. Yet, another memory surged: her husband, holding her hand in their cramped apartment, whispering, "If you always do what is right, even when it's hard, nothing can take that away from you." Chijioke tugged her sleeve again, giggling at a stray dog playing nearby. "Mama, look." She knelt to pet the dog, letting her eyes linger on the market children who had watched her generosity earlier in the day. The thrill of the boutique suddenly felt hollow compared to the warmth she had sparked with small acts of kindness. Her fingers hovered over the card, then slowly, deliberately, she withdrew it from her pocket. Not for herself, but for someone who needed it more. Ifeoma approached an elderly street vendor struggling with crates of tomatoes, sweat streaming down his face. Without hesitation, she swiped the card to help him pay for extra supplies, easing his burden. Chijioke carried a smaller crate beside her, proud of his mother's choice. From a distance, Emeka observed, his expression unreadable. He had anticipated hesitation, doubt, perhaps even indulgence. But what he saw was more than integrity. He saw instinctive generosity, courage under temptation, and a heart forged in hardship. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "She is everything I hoped she would be. And more," he whispered. Ifeoma exhaled, relief mingling with quiet pride. She hadn't given in to desire. She hadn't faltered. Every decision, every act of kindness, was building toward a day that would not just challenge her, but eventually leave Lagos' most powerful billionaire utterly shocked at the strength of a mother's heart. By late afternoon, the streets of Lagos were alive with the frenetic energy of commuters, street hawkers, and children running home from school. Ifeoma and Chijioke had moved from mile 12 to the crowded, chaotic streets of Balogun Market. The black card remained tucked safely in her bag, a constant reminder of the power and responsibility she now wielded. She had spent the morning feeding, helping, and caring, but the city had more tests in store. She noticed an old woman, bent under a basket of yams, struggling to balance it while fending off pushy vendors. Ifeoma approached, hesitating only a moment before offering assistance. "Mama, please let me help you," she said softly, her hands steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing on her. Chijioke followed, carrying a smaller basket, his little arms straining but determined. The old woman's eyes widened. "God bless you, my daughter," she whispered, gratitude spilling from her lips. A flashback hit Ifeoma, the night her husband had died. Rain pouring down their small alleyway, Chijioke coughing, and her own fingers trembling as she searched for medicine. She had learned then that survival wasn't just about enduring, it was about holding onto one's heart, even when the world tried to strip it away. That lesson guided her now, even with the card that could buy anything. As she handed the old woman a portion of her purchases, a group of young men approached, eyeing the black card with curiosity and thinly veiled envy. "Mama, is that card yours?" one asked, tone playful but probing. Ifeoma smiled politely, her pulse quickening. She felt the tension in the air, the subtle test society was offering. Would she flaunt wealth, assert power, or succumb to fear? She drew on every lesson of hardship, every memory of her husband's voice. "Always give, but never let pride guide your hand." "Sir, it's not mine to show," she said gently, maintaining her composure. "We're just trying to help where we can." The young men grunted, unconvinced, but moved on. The micro cliffhanger lingered. Had she done enough to command respect without arrogance? Ifeoma paused to scan the bustling market. Children played with makeshift toys, hawkers shouted over each other, and stray animals darted across dusty streets. She remembered the nights spent hunched over Chijioke, cold and hungry, dreaming of a day when she could provide without fear. Now, with the card, she had the ability not just to feed, but to give dignity, choice, and relief. From a rooftop nearby, Emeka adjusted his glasses, watching the interaction with a sharp, analytical gaze. He had expected hesitation, perhaps fear, maybe even a lapse in judgment. But what he saw was more than integrity, it was instinctive, earned by years of hardship. He murmured softly, almost to himself, "This is rare. Not just generosity, but courage under scrutiny. As Ifeoma helped another vendor, her chest lifted slightly, the weight of the day balanced by the growing warmth in her heart. Each choice, each act of kindness, was a thread weaving together a story that neither she nor Emeka could yet predict, a story that would ultimately leave Lagos' most powerful billionaire astonished at the depth, resilience, and unbreakable morality of a mother who had nothing, yet gave everything. The sun dipped low over Lagos, painting the skyline in streaks of amber and gold. Ifeoma and Chijioke moved through the bustling streets of Victoria Island, the rhythm of the city a constant drumbeat beneath her thoughts. Today had already tested her in ways she hadn't imagined. Yet something deeper awaited, a test not of generosity, but of desire, temptation, and personal restraint. A high-end boutique displayed gowns glittering like stars trapped in glass. Designer shoes lined the shelves, their shine dazzling against the fading daylight. Ifeoma paused, the black card in her bag burning like a beacon. She remembered the soft voice of her mother from years ago. Beauty is not wrong, my child, but power can blind even the purest hearts. Chijioke tugged at her wrapper, eyes wide. Mama, can we look? Ifeoma knelt, holding his small hands in hers. We can, but only to learn, not to take. Her pulse quickened. She had dreamed of such shoes, such fabrics, such beauty, but she also remembered the nights when Chijioke had shivered in her arms, and she had nothing to warm him, nothing to comfort him. Desire felt wrong when compared to survival and morality. A flashback hit her sharply, her husband's gentle hands clasping hers in the dim light of their tiny apartment. Power is a test, Ifeoma, not to boast, but to reveal who you truly are. Those words resonated now, guiding her steps, steadying her heart. Nearby, a young woman approached, flaunting a similar black card. She glanced at Ifeoma with thinly veiled envy. That's a lot of money for just a day. Wouldn't you rather enjoy it? Her tone was playful but probing, a subtle challenge to the mother's restraint. Ifeoma shook her head softly, offering a smile instead. I am happy with what I can give, not what I can take. Chijioke watched her closely, mimicking her gentle nod. The card had the power to buy indulgence, luxury, and fleeting pleasure, but she saw the truth in her actions. Wealth was meaningless if it came at the cost of heart. From a rooftop across the street, Emeka observed, his gaze intense. He had seen hesitation, testing, and even quiet temptation, but this restraint under direct social pressure was rarer than he had hoped. He murmured under his breath, yes. This is what I needed to see. Heart and courage intertwined. Ifeoma turned, her eyes scanning the bustling streets. A street child cried softly nearby, a crate of broken toys scattering at her feet. Without hesitation, she knelt, gathering the scraps and offering food from her purchases, Chijioke helping her. The city's noise faded around her. Every act, every decision, was a testament to a life forged through hardship, survival, and love. As she rose, the boutique shimmered behind her, tempting, beautiful, and reachable. The day's test was not over, but she had passed this one. And in the distance, Emeka's quiet satisfaction hinted that the most shocking moment of the day, the one that would leave Lagos' wealthiest billionaire astonished, was still to come. The Lagos sun had begun its slow descent, bathing the city in gold and orange as Ifeoma and Chijioke walked along the third mainland bridge. The city hummed below, Danfo buses rattling, traders shouting, children laughing and crying in equal measure. The black card, still tucked safely in her wrapper, had already allowed her to help dozens that day, street children, vendors, stray animals. Yet, even as the day waned, a test more profound awaited, a challenge not of money, but of heart and intuition. Ifeoma paused at the sight of an abandoned stall, covered in dust and forgotten goods. She knelt to examine the items, jars of palm oil, stacks of cassava, and a small basket of yams. A memory surfaced, her late husband, holding her hand as they shared a meager meal in their tiny apartment. Even in scarcity, giving is a choice, Ifeoma. Never forget that. Those words guided her now. Chijioke tugged at her sleeve. Mama, can we help them? Yes, my love, she whispered, pulling out the card. The vendor, a man older than her mother, looked up, disbelief etched across his face. His hands shook as she handed over enough money to restock his entire stall and pay off a small debt owed to another vendor down the street. Chijioke helped place some of the goods, beaming at the joy he had helped create. From a rooftop across the street, Emeka's gaze sharpened. He had watched countless people in his life face wealth, temptation, and moral decisions. Few impressed him. Fewer still moved him. But today, Ifeoma's choices were leaving him stunned. She had spent the day helping strangers, feeding children, and even caring for animals, all while resisting the temptation to indulge herself even once. Every swipe, every decision, had revealed layers of character he had longed to see. He remembered his own childhood in Surulur, nights when hunger gnawed at him, and a stranger had offered help without expectation. That gift had shaped him, teaching him to observe, to question, to test. Yet, even he had never imagined a person could wield sudden wealth with such deliberate kindness. A flashback hit Ifeoma, the first day she held Chijioke, a newborn fragile and screaming in her arms. With no partner, no support, only courage and prayer. She had learned to navigate poverty, judgment, and despair. And today's test, one day with wealth beyond imagining, was nothing compared to the years of survival she had endured. As she finished helping the vendor, a young boy ran up, pointing to a stray puppy limping nearby. Without hesitation, she offered food, guiding Chijioke to help feed it. The scene mirrored countless small moments of her life: survival, compassion, resilience, and courage, all intertwined in action that cost nothing but heart. Emeka stepped back from the railing, whispering under his breath, "She's not just generous. She's extraordinary. A mother with nothing, and yet she gives everything. This will shock me more than I ever imagined." Ifeoma's chest swelled with quiet pride. She had made choices that reflected a lifetime of hardship, moral guidance, and love. And knowingly, each decision was layering a revelation so profound that even Lagos' wealthiest billionaire would be left breathless by the truth of her heart. Night was falling over Lagos, the city lights flickering to life, reflecting off puddles from a brief evening drizzle. Ifeoma and Chijioke had made their way to a small street corner near Oshodi, where the chaos of traffic and market vendors converged. The black card in her pocket seemed heavier now, not from monetary value, but from the weight of the choices she had made and the one final test that awaited her. A crowd had gathered, weary faces of street children and elderly traders, hungry and desperate. Some were familiar from the day's journey, others new to her eyes. Ifeoma's heart ached at the sight, and Chijioke squeezed her hand. "Mama, can we help them too?" She nodded, a tight breath forming in her chest. Memories cascaded, the nights Chijioke had cried from hunger, the day her husband had died in a sudden accident, leaving her alone to navigate the streets of Mushin, and the countless moments she had prayed for even a sliver of hope. "If you always do what is right, even when it's hard," she whispered the lesson to herself. The vendor nearby, an older woman with trembling hands, approached her. "Please, anything," she said softly, eyes darting toward the black card. Ifeoma took it out, scanning the crowd. Instead of buying herself a small luxury, she authorized the card to purchase enough food, water, and essentials for every person gathered. Crates of yams, beans, fish, and bottled water appeared like magic, and she handed out portions, guiding children to share with one another. Even stray dogs received small bowls of leftovers. Chijioke's laughter rang bright, his eyes sparkling with pride. From a rooftop, Emeka watched in stunned silence. He had witnessed integrity, courage, and generosity all day, but never on this scale. A mother with nothing had just transformed a corner of Lagos into a haven for the hungry, the abandoned, and the overlooked. His hand went to his mouth. He whispered, almost trembling, She didn't spend a naira on herself. Not once. Every choice, every act, for others. This is impossible." Ifeoma paused, exhausted but fulfilled. A memory surged: a rainy afternoon when she had carried a sick Chijioke across streets, begging for help she had not received. And yet here she was, empowered, not by her own wealth, but by trust placed in her by someone she barely knew. The full weight of the day's lesson hit her: power is meaningless without heart, and generosity is most profound when it costs nothing to the giver but everything to give. Chijioke tugged at her wrapper. "Mama, they're all happy." "Yes, my love," she said softly, tears glimmering. "We did what we could." Emeka finally descended from his rooftop, approaching slowly. He looked at Ifeoma, then at the grateful crowd, then back at her. His usual control, the sharp precision that had built empires, faltered. For the first time in decades, he was truly, completely shocked, not by money, not by power, but by the strength, morality, and heart of a single mother who had nothing and gave everything. He whispered, voice barely audible over the hum of Lagos, I never imagined anyone could be this selfless. The city continued to pulse around them, indifferent in its chaos, yet in that moment, a single mother and her child had created a ripple of hope powerful enough to stop a billionaire in his tracks. The night had fully fallen over Lagos, neon lights reflecting off rain-slicked streets, the hum of traffic creating a constant, distant rhythm. Ifeoma and Chijioke stood quietly, watching the crowd disperse, children laughing as they carried bags of food and vendors adjusting their now-stocked stalls. Her chest rose and fell with exhaustion and pride, the weight of the day settling like a warm blanket over her heart. Emeka approached slowly, his footsteps cautious, almost reverent. For the first time, the billionaire, who had controlled empires with a word and tested countless hearts with subtle traps, felt small, utterly astonished by what he had witnessed. He stopped in front of Ifeoma, his eyes locked on hers, trying to process the magnitude of her choices. You didn't spend a naira on yourself, he said, voice low, incredulous. Not once. Every single act today. For others. Ifeoma blinked, unsure how to respond. She had acted out of instinct, compassion, and the moral lessons her late husband had instilled in her. Yet hearing it aloud from the city's wealthiest man felt surreal. Chijioke stepped forward, holding her hand. Mama helped everyone, he said simply, pride sparkling in his innocent eyes. Emeka's gaze softened as he looked at the boy, then back at Ifeoma. A memory stirred a long ago day in Surulere, when someone had helped him in a moment of need. That act had shaped him, teaching him to observe, test, and question human nature. But never had he imagined a person could wield sudden wealth with such purity and courage. Ifeoma, he whispered, almost more to himself than to her. I thought I knew what integrity meant. I thought I had seen generosity. But today you've redefined everything. A mother with nothing, yet giving everything, choosing others over herself at every turn. I've never seen anything like it. Tears welled in Ifeoma's eyes, not from pride, but from the quiet acknowledgement that her struggles, her losses, and her relentless commitment to her son and community had been seen and understood. Every hardship, the rainy nights, the hunger, the nights she cried herself to sleep while Chijioke rested had led to this moment. Emeka reached into his coat and held out an envelope. This isn't charity, he said, voice trembling slightly. This is recognition. You've shown me a truth I never imagined. Wealth is meaningless without heart. Courage is meaningless without love. And integrity. Integrity is the most valuable thing in the world. Ifeoma took the envelope, her hands shaking. She glanced down at Chijioke, who smiled and whispered, Mama, we did good. Emeka stepped back, allowing the moment to settle. For a long moment, the chaotic city seemed to pause, the lights of Lagos reflecting off wet asphalt like tiny stars acknowledging her triumph. In one day, a homeless single mother had not only tested the billionaire's expectations, but shattered them, leaving him humbled, astonished, and deeply moved. As she walked away with Chijioke, the city alive around them, Emeka whispered to himself, a rare smile breaking his usual composure, I never imagined one day could teach me so much. One mother, one heart, can change everything. And somewhere in the distance, the sounds of laughter, chatter, and hope echoed through Lagos, a city forever touched by a mother who gave everything she had, even when she had nothing.